The story gets underway as we are shown the city of New York. We see a very tall building where a man named David King stands on the rooftop, thinking deeply about the troubling situation that has suddenly overtaken his life. He is a successful musician who has produced many hit songs, yet he now finds himself overwhelmed as he realizes that he has sold most of his company's shares. Determined to prevent this outcome at any cost, he begins making phone calls one by one, telling each shareholder that he has decided to buy back all of his shares and is willing to pay more than the original amount. After these conversations, he returns to his room where his wife, Pam, arrives to share her thoughts about how the company should be managed. Suddenly, their son Trey walks in, explaining that he has a college basketball game and will be attending with his friend Kyle. King offers to drop him off personally. Once they are seated in the car, King notices Trey scrolling on his phone and eventually asks how many hours he usually spends on it each day. Trey replies that there is no fixed amount and sometimes he uses it for up to 12 hours. King playfully suggests that he should change this habit. When they arrive at the school, King walks Trey to the entrance. Trey speaks about his passion for music and explains how much he loves it. When King steps onto the basketball court, he introduces himself to Trey's coach. As he leaves, he does not tell Trey that he will not be staying for the game and instead heads out to handle work matters. The moment he gets into his car, Paul, who is Kyle's father and also King's driver, approaches and hands him a file containing the company's financial details. King then drives to his office where he meets Patrick, his business partner, and begins explaining everything that has been weighing on him, including how record label executives plan to ruin the company by replacing artists with AI-generated songs. Patrick agrees with the logic behind AI, saying music production is expensive and risky, and AI would allow them to produce more songs at lower cost. King looks at him firmly and argues that the company was founded to create music from the heart and soul, not through machines, insisting that he wants to preserve the old tradition even if every other company switches to AI. Eventually, Patrick asks what King wants. King replies that he wants Patrick to sell his share back so he can regain majority control. After thinking for a moment, Patrick agrees. King rushes home happily to share the news with Pam, and she supports the idea, but reminds him that Patrick will require full payment and that they do not currently have the necessary funds. King explains that he will put all their property up for hire, regain control of the company, and then repay all debts once profits return. Although Pam says the plan is risky, she eventually agrees. As they reminisce about their early days together, King suddenly receives a call from an unknown man who says Trey is with them and that he will call again with instructions. The call ends abruptly. King quickly tells Pam and Paul that Trey has been kidnapped, and they immediately call the police. Soon the house is filled with officers and 3 detectives, Higgins, Bell, and Briggs, who ask King to explain exactly what the kidnapper said. King states that they demanded 17.5 million Swiss francs and 1,000 denomination notes. Briggs tells him not to panic and assures him they will handle the investigation. He then asks whether King suspects anyone close to him, but King says no. Despite his answer, the detectives begin interrogating Paul and then the coach. Paul suddenly realizes that Kyle is also missing, and although he tries to tell the officers, nobody listens because he is just a driver. He rushes to King and says Kyle cannot be found. Suddenly Pam runs in crying that Trey has been found. They all rush outside, relieved, but Paul keeps begging for help finding Kyle. The detectives explain that the kidnappers likely abducted the wrong boy and took Kyle instead of Trey. Hearing this, Paul becomes emotional and breaks down. The detectives question Trey, who says he and Kyle went for lunch after the game, and when he returned, Kyle was gone. Meanwhile, the kidnappers call again, saying that despite taking the wrong child, their target was always King, and he still must pay the ransom or the boy will die. Paul pleads with King to pay, saying he trusts the police to recover the money. King is torn because paying the ransom will take away the funds he needs to buy back the shares. Patrick advises him to follow his heart and warns that the public will destroy him if anything happens to Kyle. Trey gives similar advice, explaining how reputations are easily ruined on social media. After thinking the entire night, King decides to save Kyle. Kyle himself is shown locked in a bathtub where a loud song titled I Am Drunk plays repeatedly. King gathers the ransom money and waits for the call. When it comes, they instruct him to bring the money alone and also demand Pam's bracelet. Although King becomes angry, Pam immediately gives it without argument. King boards the metro as instructed. Suddenly the kidnappers call again, telling him to stand between two marked boxes and then throw the bag. He resists at first, realizing they may have installed a tracker, but before he can do anything, a man pulls the emergency brake, causing King to drop the bag. It is immediately stolen and passed between multiple accomplices using scooters and motorcycles. After a long chase, the police recover only a decoy bag filled with paper while the real bag escapes. Meanwhile, Kyle is released in a public park and taken to a hospital where he tells officers he remembers only the bathtub and the loud song. The next day, newspapers praise King as a hero for saving Kyle. Shortly after, an investor arrives informing King that others know he is bankrupt and are withdrawing support, giving him 14 days to return their money. This leaves King under heavy stress. He listens again to the song Kyle mentioned and realizes it might be a clue. He goes to the hospital and plays it for Kyle, who confirms it. King tells the police to investigate a singer named Young Felon, believing he is the kidnapper because the man on the phone called himself Felony. The detectives dismiss him. Feeling desperate, King decides to confront Felon himself. Paul joins him. They find Felon's house, where Felon's wife, holding their child, happily welcomes King and says Felon wanted to collaborate with him. She gives them the address of his small studio. King enters alone, finds Felon recording, stops the track, and demands his money. Felon calmly says King never noticed him until now, and this was the only way to gain his attention. An argument breaks out and turns into a fight. Felon fires a gun before fleeing, and King chases him into a metro, where they fight again until King overpowers him. The police arrest Felon, raid his house, and recover all the ransom money. Afterward, King visits Paul, who is recovering, and offers him a share, but Paul refuses, saying King has done enough. Later, Felon admits his crimes, but requests one final meeting with King. In jail, he proposes a collaboration, claiming they could create the biggest hit in the world. King refuses and says he wants to start small, with freedom and integrity. When he returns home, Trey introduces him to a new singer named Swa and plays her song titled Highest to Lowest. Impressed, King asks if she is ready for the challenges of the industry. She confidently says yes, so King smiles and says they will begin.